The aliens still have nightmares about the day they let humans test their superweapon part. Humanity had been searching the stars for signs of intelligent life for over a century. Radio telescopes pointed toward distant galaxies, messages sent into the void, and space probes venturing beyond our solar system. Then one day they got an answer. It was a regular Tuesday morning when the signal arrived at the United Nations Space Command headquarters in Geneva. The message came through all channels simultaneously, bypassing Earth security protocols as if they were nothing more than a child's puzzle. The alien transmission contained mathematics, basic chemistry, and an invitation to talk. The world's government scrambled to respond. After weeks of heated debate, they selected Commander Alan Wright to lead the first contact team. Alan was a decorated veteran with a calm demeanor and sharp mind. He had gray at his temples and wrinkles around, his eyes that deepened when he smiled, which wasn't often these days. "This is either the greatest moment in human history or the beginning of the end," Alan said to his wife the night before the scheduled contact. "Either way, I need to be there." The aliens called themselves the Cortaxian Alliance, a federation of 7 different species who had mastered interstellar travel centuries ago. They sent a small vessel to Earth orbit as a gesture of peace. The ship was beautiful, with curves that seemed to bend light around it and a surface that shimmered like oil on water. Alan led a team of 12 humans aboard a shuttle to meet the visitors. Dr. Lisa Carter sat beside him, fidgeting with her wedding ring. Lisa was the foremost expert on theoretical physics with 3 Nobel Prizes and a reputation for thinking in ways that made other scientists uncomfortable. "Stop looking so nervous," Alan told her. "You're making me anxious." Lisa managed a smile. "I've spent my life studying the universe. I never expected it to study me back." The docking procedure was smooth, almost too perfect. When the airlock opened, humanity had its first glimpse of alien life. The Cortaxians stood nearly 7 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that changed color like a chameleon. Their faces had 3 large eyes arranged in a triangle pattern, and they spoke through vibrating membranes on their necks. Ambassador Zarthul stepped forward, his skin shifting to a deep blue. "We greet the people of Earth with open arms and open minds," he said through a translation device. His voice sounded like water flowing over stones. The first meetings went better than anyone could have hoped. The Cortaxians shared information about their civilization spanning 27 star systems. They expressed interest in peaceful trade and cultural exchange. Alan found them surprisingly forthright, though certain topics made their skin flash with patches of red and yellow. During the 3rd day of talks, the Cortaxians mentioned a threat they called the Void, something consuming star systems at the edge of their territory. Ambassador Zarthul's skin turned almost black when he spoke of it. "It is like nothing we have encountered in our 10,000 years of exploration," he said. "It consumes everything: matter, energy, even space itself." That evening, at a formal dinner aboard the alien vessel, Lisa found herself seated next to General Vrex, the military commander of the Cortaxian delegation. Unlike the other aliens, Vrex's skin stayed a constant gray, with only occasional flickers of color. He asked pointed questions about human warfare, seeming particularly interested in how humanity approached scientific problems. "Your species is young," Vrex said, his translator making his voice sound like grinding metal. "Yet you've advanced remarkably quickly from primitive technology to space travel." Lisa sipped her water. "We're adaptable. We see problems from different angles." "Different angles," Vrex repeated, as if testing the phrase. "This is precisely why I wish to speak with you." The general activated a holographic display above the table. A massive structure appeared, rotating slowly in the air. It looked like a series of concentric rings surrounding a pulsing, dark core. "This is the Nexus Cannon," Vrex said. "Our last line of defense against the Void." Lisa studied the design, her mind already racing through calculations. "A weapon? The most powerful ever created in our history," Vrex confirmed. "Designed to collapse stellar bodies into controlled singularities." Alan who had been watching from across the table, frowned. Why show us this? Vrex's skin flickered with spots of blue. Because despite our best efforts, we cannot make it work properly. The energy containment is unstable. We've lost many scientists to accidents. Lisa pointed to several areas in the hologram. These containment fields are fighting against each other. The resonance patterns would create feedback loops. The entire Cortaxian delegation turned to stare at her. Vrex's skin showed the first real emotion she'd seen from him, patches of bright yellow surprise. You determined this just by looking? Vrex asked. Lisa shrugged. It's basic quantum resonance theory. We discovered it during our early fusion experiments. Ambassador Zarthul and the other Cortaxians began a rapid conversation in their native language, their skin flashing in patterns too quick to follow. Alan caught Lisa's eye and gave her a warning look. She'd said too much. When they finished, Vrex turned back to the humans. We would like to propose something unprecedented. A small team of humans to visit our research facility at Proxima Centauri. To offer your different perspective on our weapon. The room fell silent. Ambassador Zarthul's skin had turned a worried purple. General, this is highly irregular. The Council has not approved. The Council is not facing the void, Vrex interrupted. Every day we delay, another system falls. Alan stepped in diplomatically. This would require significant discussion on our end as well. Sharing military technology is a sensitive matter. Of course, Vrex said. Vrex, but consider this. If the void reaches your system, there will be no Earth to defend. We offer knowledge centuries beyond your current capability in exchange for your unique perspective. Later that night, as the human delegation returned to Earth, Alan pulled Lisa aside. What did you see in that weapon design? He asked quietly. Lisa's eyes were distant, still working through the calculations. They're brilliant, but they have blind spots. Big ones. Their approach to physics is different from ours. More elegant in some ways, but missing fundamental connections we take for granted. Can you fix their weapon? She looked at him directly. Yes, and that terrifies me. 3 weeks later, after countless meetings with world leaders and military advisors, the decision was made. Earth would send a team to the Cortaxian research facility. Lisa would lead the scientific contingent with Alan in command of the mission. As they prepared to depart, news came that another star system had fallen to the void. The Cortaxians were becoming desperate. Do you trust them? Lisa asked Alan, as they boarded the shuttle that would take them to the alien vessel waiting in orbit. Alan checked his sidearm, making sure it was secure in its holster. No, but I trust you. If anyone can figure out what's really going on, it's you. Lisa nodded, her mind already working on the problems ahead. Something about the Nexus cannon design had bothered her since she first saw it. The flaws seemed too obvious for such an advanced civilization to miss. The shuttle engines fired, pushing them toward the stars and whatever waited for humanity beyond them. The aliens still have nightmares about the day. They let humans test their superweapon part. The Cortaxian ship moved through space in ways that defied human understanding. One moment they were near Earth, and the next, stars blurred around them. Lisa pressed her face against the viewport, watching as reality seemed to fold and unfold like paper. It's beautiful, she whispered. Alan stood beside her, his face grim. And terrifying. They could reach Earth in minutes with this technology. Their journey to Proxima Centauri took just 3 days. Back on Earth, scientists had once calculated it would take humans 40 years using their most advanced propulsion systems. The human team spent most of the trip studying the information the Cortaxians had shared about their weapon. The team consisted of 5 members. Besides Alan and Lisa, there was Frank Mitchell, an engineer with white hair and hands rough from decades of building experimental engines. Frank had a way of understanding machines that went beyond science, almost like he could feel what was wrong with them. This design makes no sense, Frank muttered as he reviewed the Nexus cannon schematics. It's like they deliberately created interference patterns in the energy flow. Dr. Olivia Daniels was the 4th member, a xenobiologist, with bright eyes and endless curiosity. She spent most of the journey studying Cortaxian biology from the limited data they'd been given. Their nervous systems process information differently than ours, she told the others during one of their private meetings. And there's something strange about how they perceive certain energy wavelengths. The fifth member was Jack Porter, a young diplomat with a background in game theory. He was quiet most of the time, listening and watching, but when he did speak, everyone paid attention. "They're not telling us everything about this void," Jack said. "The way they describe it sounds almost guilty." On the third day, they arrived at Proxima Centauri b, the nearest exoplanet to Earth's solar system. From orbit, it looked nothing like they had imagined. The planet's surface was covered with massive structures that gleamed in the light of the red dwarf star. "A Dyson swarm," Lisa breathed. "They're harvesting the entire energy output of the star." The Cortaxian ship docked with an enormous orbital facility that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. As they disembarked, they were greeted by a delegation of Cortaxian scientists, their skins shifting through patterns of green and blue. "Welcome to Research Station Proxima," said a tall Cortaxian with 6 small dots on his forehead. "I am Chief Researcher Mev Lorne. General Vrex informed us of your arrival." Mev Lorne led them through the station. The corridors were designed for beings larger than humans, making the team feel small and vulnerable. Other aliens they passed stared at them with mixtures of curiosity and skepticism, their skin sometimes flashing with colors the humans were beginning to recognize as disgust or amusement. "They don't think much of us," Alan whispered to Lisa. "Let them underestimate us," she replied. After walking for what seemed like miles, they reached a massive chamber. The room was spherical, with walkways crisscrossing around a suspended object at the center. It was the Nexus cannon, and it was far larger than the hologram had suggested. The weapon consisted of crystalline structures, arranged in concentric rings around a core of swirling darkness. Energy pulses moved through the crystals in patterns. That made Lisa's eyes hurt if she watched too long. "This is the most powerful weapon ever created," Mev Lorne said, his skin glowing with pride. "When fully operational, it will create a targeted singularity, capable of collapsing a star upon itself." Frank whistled. "A portable black hole generator." "Essentially, yes," Mev Lorne agreed. "But we've been unable to stabilize the reaction. The energy cascade grows too quickly, threatening to consume the weapon itself and everything around it." Lisa walked slowly around the walkway, studying the cannon from different angles. She could see the flaws immediately. The Cortaxians had designed the weapon to channel energy in ways that created unnecessary turbulence. "May I see your mathematical models?" she asked. Mev Lorne's skin flickered with reluctance, but he waved a 4-fingered hand at a nearby console. Holographic equations appeared in the air. Lisa and Frank exchanged glances as they reviewed the calculations. The math was advanced using principles humans hadn't yet discovered, but there were fundamental errors in how the Cortaxians understood energy resonance. "This is wrong," Lisa said, pointing to a particular equation. "You're treating the quantum field as uniform, but it's not. There are ripples and eddies you're not accounting for." Mev Lorne's skin flashed red. "Impossible. Our understanding of quantum mechanics is thousands of years beyond yours." "Maybe that's the problem," Frank said, stepping forward. "You've been looking at this the same way for so long that you can't see alternatives." Over the next few days, the human team was given access to the research data on the Nexus cannon. During the day, they worked alongside increasingly frustrated Cortaxian scientists. At night, they met in their quarters to discuss what they were learning. "They've lost 23 scientists in failed tests," Jack reported after reviewing security logs he wasn't supposed to have access to. "The weapon keeps creating what they call runaway singularities." Olivia had made discoveries of her own. "I've figured out why they missed the flaws in their design. Cortaxian eyes can't perceive certain energy frequencies. They're literally blind to the interference patterns." On the 5th day, General Vrex arrived at the station. He called the human team to a private meeting chamber. "What have you found?" he asked without preamble, his gray skin showing only the faintest ripples of color. Alan looked at Lisa, who nodded. "We believe we can stabilize your weapon," Alan said. "But we need to know more about what you're fighting. What exactly is the void?" Vrex was silent for a long moment. Then he activated a display showing a region of space where stars simply ended. Beyond was absolute darkness. "It began 30 years ago," Vrex said. "A darkness that consumes everything it touches. Our scientists believe it's a tear in the fabric of reality itself, expanding at an accelerating rate." "And you think this weapon can stop it?" Lisa asked. "Not stop. Contain. The singularity will create a boundary the void cannot cross." Lisa didn't believe him. Something in his voice, pattern, detectable even through the translator, suggested he wasn't telling the whole truth, but she also knew the weapon could work if properly modified. "We'll help you," she said finally. "But we do this our way, no shortcuts." Vrex's skin briefly flashed with patches of yellow before returning to gray. "Agreed. How soon can you begin? Modifications?" "We already have," Frank said with a small smile. That night, as the human team finalized their modification plans, Olivia shared something disturbing she had discovered in the Cortaxian medical database. "They're terrified of us," she said. "Not because of our technology or strength, but because of how we think. Their brains are highly specialized, incredibly efficient at certain types of problems, but they struggle with creative leaps. They see us as unpredictable." Alan considered this. "Then let's show them just how unpredictable humans can be." The aliens still have nightmares about the day they let humans test their superweapon part. 3 work on the Nexus cannon began in earnest. Lisa and Frank led the modifications, working 16-hour days alongside the Cortaxian engineers. At first, the aliens were cold and dismissive, their skin frequently flashing the reddish-orange of irritation. They couldn't understand how these primitive humans could possibly improve their design. But as days passed, attitudes began to change. The Cortaxians watched in growing amazement as Lisa rewrote their equations on large holographic displays. She approached quantum physics from angles they had never considered. "It's like watching someone solve a puzzle by going through the back," one Cortaxian scientist said, his skin showing the blue-green of grudging respect. Frank focused on the physical components of the weapon. His hands, worn from decades of building engines on Earth, moved with surprising gentleness as he reconfigured delicate crystalline arrays. "Your design creates too much friction between energy states," he explained to a group of Cortaxian engineers. "We need to smooth the pathway, like helping water flow downhill instead of forcing it through pipes." While Lisa and Frank worked on the weapon, Olivia continued studying Cortaxian biology. She made a breakthrough on the 10th day, rushing into the team's private quarters with excitement in her eyes. "I figured it out," she told Alan and Jack. "The Cortaxians evolved on a world with a different radiation spectrum than Earth. Their entire species has a blind spot in how they perceive certain energy wavelengths. It's like they're all colorblind to a color that humans can see clearly." Jack nodded slowly. "That explains why they missed the flaws in their weapon. They literally can't see the interference patterns." Alan frowned. "But why wouldn't they tell us this? Why pretend it was just a design problem?" "Pride," Jack suggested. "Or maybe they don't fully understand their own limitation." 2 weeks into the project, Lisa called for a meeting with the entire human team. She had dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep, but there was excitement in her voice. "We've identified the core problem," she said, displaying a 3D model of the weapon's inner workings. "The Cortaxians designed the weapon to create a controlled singularity, but they're approaching it wrong. They're trying to force energy into a single point, which creates instability." Frank picked up where she left off. "It's like trying to push all the water in a lake through a straw. Instead, we need to let the energy collapse naturally, guiding it rather than forcing it." "Can you make it work?" Alan asked. Lisa nodded. "Yes, but there's something else you should know. Based on what we've learned about the void, I don't think Vrex is telling us everything. The patterns of expansion don't match a natural phenomenon." Later that day, General Vrex visited the project. His gray skin showed rare patches of bright yellow when Lisa explained their progress. "You've done in 2 weeks what our scientists couldn't accomplish in years, Vrex said. How soon can we test the weapon? Another week to complete the modifications, Lisa replied. But I have questions about the void. The data you've provided shows unusual patterns, almost as if, focus, on the weapon, Dr. Carter, Vrex interrupted, his skin suddenly still and gray. Time is running short. Another system fell to the void yesterday. After Vrex left, Jack approached Alan privately. I've been analyzing the Cortaxian communications. Something big is happening. Their military is mobilizing across multiple systems. They're getting ready for something, Alan agreed. But what? On the 17th day, as the modifications neared completion, Lisa made a disturbing discovery. She was reviewing the original design specifications when she noticed a pattern in the energy signature of the void. Oh no, she whispered. She rushed to find the others, gathering them in a maintenance corridor where they wouldn't be overheard. The void isn't a natural phenomenon, she said, her voice tight with urgency. It's artificial, and its energy signature matches the Nexus cannon. The team fell silent as the implications sank in. You're saying their weapon created the void? Olivia asked. Lisa nodded grimly. A test gone wrong. They must have lost control of an earlier version. Now they're trying to build a more powerful version to contain their mistake. Frank rubbed his chin thoughtfully. That explains why they were so desperate for outside help. They're trying to fix their own mess but can't see what they did wrong the first time. Should we confront them? Jack asked. Alan thought for a moment. No. If we're right, they've been lying to us from the beginning. We need to be careful. Lisa, can your modifications actually contain the void? In theory, yes. But the weapon will be far more powerful than they realize. The containment field needs to match the void's expansion exactly, which means the energy output will be massive. The next day, Chief Researcher Mevlorn announced that the weapon would be transported to a testing site on the edge of Cortaxian space. The human team would accompany the science and military personnel to observe the test. As preparations for transport began, Frank pulled Lisa aside. I made some additional modifications to the power regulation systems, he said quietly. Just in case things don't go as planned. Lisa gave him a questioning look. Let's just say I've added a kill switch, Frank said with a wink. Only you and I know about it. 3 days later, the Nexus cannon was loaded aboard a massive Cortaxian vessel. The journey to the test site would take 2 days. During that time, Lisa and Frank worked continuously, fine-tuning their modifications. On the eve of their arrival at the test site, General Vrex called for a briefing. The human team and key Cortaxian personnel gathered in the ship's command center. Star maps displayed the testing location, an uninhabited system far from any populated worlds. Tomorrow we make history, Vrex said, his skin showing faint ripples of blue and gold. If the test is successful, the modified Nexus cannon will save countless lives from the void. Alan stepped forward. General, before we proceed, we need to know the truth about what we're dealing with. Is the void natural, or did the Cortaxians create it? The room fell silent. The Cortaxian skin flickered rapidly through patterns of surprise, anger, and fear. Vrex remained still, his gray skin betraying nothing. After a long moment, he spoke. You are more perceptive than we anticipated, Commander Wright. Yes, the void began as an accident, a weapons test that created a runaway reaction. We have been trying to contain it ever since. Why keep this from us? Lisa demanded. Would you have helped if you knew? Vrex asked. Lisa met his three-eyed gaze. Yes, because the danger is real regardless of who caused it, but I would have approached the solution differently if I had all the facts. Vrex's skin showed a brief flash of what they had come to recognize as regret. Tomorrow's test proceeds as planned, he said firmly. For all our sakes, I hope your modifications work, Dr. Carter. As the meeting disbanded, Alan gathered his team. Stay alert, he told them quietly. And be ready for anything. I don't think we've heard the whole truth yet. The aliens still have nightmares about the day. They let humans test their superweapon part. The day of the test arrived with a sense of heavy tension. The Nexus cannon had been positioned in an empty star system at the edge of Cortaxian space. The massive weapon floated in the void, its crystalline rings catching the light of a distant sun. The human team joined the Cortaxian High Command aboard the flagship observer vessel. The ship was positioned at what the aliens assured them was a safe distance. On the bridge, dozens of Cortaxian officers monitored various stations, their skin flickering with nervous patterns of green and yellow. Alan stood with his arms crossed, watching General Vrex give final instructions to his crew. Lisa was nearby, her attention focused on a small device she had built to monitor the weapon's energy output. Frank stood at her side, his face tight with worry. "Something doesn't feel right," Frank whispered. Lisa nodded slightly. "The energy readings are already higher than they should be. The cannon is drawing power even in standby mode." Olivia and Jack joined them, completing their small circle of humans amid the much taller aliens. "Everyone's on edge," Jack noted. "Not just the general staff, but the scientists too. They're afraid." "With good reason," Olivia replied. "If this test goes wrong, we could create a second void." General Vrex approached the human team. His gray skin showed small patches of blue, the closest to nervousness they had seen from him. "The test will begin in 10 minutes, he said. "We are activating the primary power sequence now." Lisa held up her monitoring device. "General, I'm detecting unusual power fluctuations. We should delay the test until we can check the modifications one more time." "Impossible," Vrex said firmly. "The void has accelerated its expansion. 3 more systems will be lost within days if we don't act now." Before Lisa could argue further, alarms began to sound throughout the bridge. A Cortaxian officer approached. Vrex, his skin flashing urgent patterns of red and orange. "General, the weapon's power levels are rising beyond predicted parameters," the officer reported. "The automatic firing sequence has initiated." "What?" Vrex's skin went completely still. "Override it." "We cannot, sir. The system is locked." Lisa rushed to a nearby console, pushing past a surprised Cortaxian technician. Her fingers flew over the alien controls as she accessed the weapon's systems. "The modifications are amplifying. The power intake at an exponential rate," she said, her voice rising. "The weapon is going to fire in less than 5 minutes, and it's drawing far more energy than we calculated." Alan grabbed Vrex's arm. "Evacuate now. Get every ship out of this sector immediately." For once, the Cortaxian general didn't argue. He issued rapid orders, his skin now showing streaks of bright, alarming red. Throughout the flagship, Cortaxians rushed to battle stations as evacuation signals blared. "We can't just leave," Lisa said, still working at the console. "If this weapon fires at current power levels, it could create something worse than the original void." Frank joined her at the console. "The kill switch I installed, can you activate it?" Lisa shook her head. "Not remotely. Someone would need to be on the weapon platform itself." The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this information. Then, Alan spoke. "How much time do we have?" 4 minutes until firing," Lisa answered. Alan turned to Vrex. "I need a shuttle, fast." The general's 3 eyes blinked in surprise. "You cannot reach the platform. Make adjustments and return in that time." "I don't plan to return," Alan said simply. Lisa grabbed his arm. "No, I'll go. I know exactly what needs to be done." "We'll both go," Frank said, stepping forward. "I built the kill switch. I should be there to activate it." Before Alan could object, the ship rocked violently. Outside the viewport, space itself seemed to ripple and distort. "The weapon is affecting local space-time," a Cortaxian scientist cried, his skin flashing patterns of terror. 3 minutes to firing," announced an automated voice. General Vrex made a decision. "Bay 12, the fastest shuttle we have is prepared for emergency evacuation. It's yours." Alan looked at Lisa and Frank. "Go. Save what you can." As Lisa and Frank raced from the bridge, Jack called after them. "The fail-safe frequency we discussed. Use it if everything else fails." The shuttle was small but incredibly fast. With Frank at the controls, they covered the distance to the weapon platform in just over a minute. The docking was rough, nearly crashing into the platform as the space around them continued to warp and distort. Lisa and Frank rushed through the empty corridors of the platform. Around them, the structure groaned and vibrated as the Nexus cannon drew more and more power. 1 minute to firing, came the automated announcement. They reached the central chamber where the weapons control systems were located. The crystalline rings were spinning rapidly now, the dark core at their center pulsing with ominous energy. Frank ran to a panel he had modified days earlier, pulling it open to reveal a complex array of circuits. Lisa went to the main console, her hands moving quickly over the controls. "The weapon's target has shifted," she said, her voice tight with alarm. "It's no longer aimed at the void. It's targeting the space near the flagship." Frank looked up from his work. They never intended to stop the void. They're trying to create a controlled version they can weaponize. 30 seconds to firing. Lisa made a decision. She input a series of commands, redirecting the weapon's aim toward empty space. Then she joined Frank at the panel. "The kill switch isn't responding," Frank said, frustration clear in his voice. "The power levels are too high," Lisa thought quickly. "The fail-safe frequency Jack mentioned. We need to reverse the energy flow, create an implosion instead of an explosion." "Is that even possible?" "In theory. But it would mean 10 seconds to firing." There was no time for debate. Together, they reconfigured the circuits, reversing the energy pathways and setting up a feedback loop that would cause the weapon to collapse in on itself. 5 seconds. Frank looked at Lisa. "If this works..." "I know," she said. "Run if you can. I need to stay and make sure the sequence completes." Frank shook his head. "We started this together." As the countdown reached 0, they finished the final adjustments. The weapon fired, but instead of projecting its energy outward, it began to implode. The dark core collapsed inward, pulling the energy back into itself. What happened next, neither of them expected. As the weapon imploded, it released a strange wave of energy unlike anything they had seen before. The wave washed over them, and instead of pain, Lisa felt her mind expanding, connections forming between thoughts at incredible speed. Through the viewport, she saw the energy wave spreading outward, washing over the Cortaxian ships in the distance, and as it touched each vessel, she could somehow sense the aliens aboard. Their minds suddenly overwhelmed with terror as the wave affected their unique brain structure differently than human minds. "What have we done?" Frank whispered, watching. The phenomenon spread. The last thing Lisa saw before the emergency systems engaged was the Cortaxian flagship turning away, fleeing at maximum speed from the human modification they had never anticipated. The aliens still have nightmares about the day they let humans test their superweapon part. 5 Lisa and Frank survived. When they regained consciousness, they found themselves in an undamaged section of the weapon platform. Emergency systems had sealed off their area before the worst of the implosion. The Nexus cannon was gone, collapsed into a small, stable singularity that hung in space like a dark pearl. But something had changed. Lisa's mind felt different, sharper, faster, connections forming between ideas at incredible speed. Frank experienced the same effect, thoughts flowing with extraordinary clarity. "The energy wave," Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. "It enhanced our neural patterns." They found an emergency shuttle and made their way back to where the Cortaxian flagship had been. The massive vessel was still there, but something was wrong. It drifted in space, its engines silent. When they docked with the flagship, they found chaos. Cortaxians lay on the floor, their skin flashing with patterns of terror. Others huddled in corners, their 3 eyes wide with fear. When they saw the humans, they backed away, trembling. Alan, Olivia, and Jack met them at the airlock. They too had experienced the neural enhancement. "What happened to them?" Frank asked, watching a Cortaxian officer crawl away from them in fear. "The energy wave affected their brains differently than ours," Olivia explained. "Their neural pathways are more rigid, more specialized. The wave disrupted their thought patterns and locked many of them in a state of primal fear." Alan led them to the bridge. General Vrex was there, one of the few Cortaxians still functioning. His skin was now a uniform deep blue, a color they had never seen on him before. "What have you done?" Vrex asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We stopped your weapon from creating another void," Lisa said, though not in the way we expected. "You've done more than that," Vrex said. "You've changed everything." Over the next few hours, they pieced together what had happened. The energy wave had spread through nearby space, affecting all Cortaxians within a vast radius. While humans experienced enhanced cognitive function, the Cortaxians suffered a form of neurological shock. Most would recover over time, but they would never forget the terror they felt when the wave hit them. More troubling was what Jack discovered in the ship's secure files. The Cortaxian Alliance had been planning to use the modified Nexus cannon, not just against the Void, but as a weapon of conquest against other species, including eventually Earth. "They saw our ability to think differently as a threat," Jack explained. "They wanted our help to fix their weapon, then planned to use it against us before we became too advanced." Alan confronted Vrex with this information. The general did not deny it. "Your species evolves too quickly," Vrex said. "You solve problems in ways we cannot predict. The Alliance saw only two possibilities: control humans now, or be overtaken by them later." "And now?" Lisa asked. Vrex's skin shifted to a color they had never seen before, a deep purple that seemed to signify resignation. "Now everything changes," he said. In the days that followed, the human team took control of the situation. With their enhanced cognition, they quickly mastered Cortaxian technology. They established contact with Earth, explaining what had happened, and preventing a military response from the panicked Cortaxian fleet. Lisa focused on studying the singularity left behind by the Nexus cannon. She discovered it was actually consuming the original void, slowly healing the tear in space-time. The cure was hidden in their weapon all along, she told the others. They just couldn't see it because of their perceptual blind spot. 1 month after the incident, representatives from Earth arrived at Proxima Centauri aboard ships built using Cortaxian technology that Lisa and Frank had adapted for human use. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. The Cortaxian Alliance, once planning to subjugate humanity, now approached Earth with caution and respect. Most Cortaxians had recovered from the initial neurological shock, but they were forever changed. In their minds, humans were now associated with a primal fear unlike anything their species had experienced before. In a formal ceremony aboard the Earth ship Unity, a new treaty was signed. Humanity would join the Alliance as equals, despite their technological disadvantages. Knowledge would be shared, but weapons development would require approval from all member species. After the ceremony, Lisa stood with Alan at a viewport, watching the stars. "What do you think happens now?" she asked. Alan smiled. "We do what humans have always done. We explore. We learn. We try not to repeat the mistakes of those who came before us." Later that evening, Lisa visited General Vrex in his quarters. The Cortaxian skin had regained some of its normal coloration, but still showed patches of the deep blue of fear when he looked at her. "I wanted to ask you something," Lisa said. "Why did you really invite humans to modify your weapon? You must have known we might discover your true intentions." Vrex was quiet for a moment. Then his skin rippled with a pattern she had learned meant honesty. "We were curious," he admitted. "For all our advances, we cannot think as you do. We wanted to study that difference. We thought we were testing you, observing you in a controlled environment. But instead we were testing you," Lisa concluded. Vrex's skin flashed with acknowledgement. "A mistake we will not make again." 1 year later, Lisa returned to Earth as the head of a new joint human Cortaxian research initiative. The technology derived from the modified Nexus cannon had been dismantled, replaced with collaborative defense systems that required input from multiple species to activate. The original void was nearly gone, consumed by the stable singularity that Lisa's team carefully monitored. The Alliance expanded peacefully into new regions of space, with humanity taking a leading role in first contact situations due to their adaptable thinking. But throughout Alliance space, one thing remained constant. When Cortaxians told their children about humans, Their skin would involuntarily flash with patterns of fear. Most had never seen a human in person, but the stories were passed down, tales of the day when humans had turned the Alliance's greatest weapon against them with a simple change in perspective. In Cortaxian culture, they developed a saying, "Be wary of showing a human your weapons, for they will see in them what you cannot." And even decades later, many Cortaxians still woke in the night, their skin flashing with terror as they dreamed of humans calmly reshaping reality while the universe trembled.